Hello, today we're going to talk about addition and subtraction equations. In order to solve addition and subtraction equations, we are going to use what are called inverse operations. Inverse operations are just operations that undo each other. Like, for example, addition and subtraction, those are opposite operations or inverse operations. Multiplication and division, those are also opposite operations or inverse operations. So in order to strategically solve equations, we are going to use the following steps. First, we're going to always write the problem down. Then we're going to draw what's called the river. Unfortunately, if you were gone in class today, you didn't get to hear the big mouth Billy Bass, but you can look him up on YouTube and watch him sing some songs. So we're going to draw the river. We are going to circle the variable, and then for today, we're going to add or subtract extras to get what you circled alone, meaning we're going to use the inverse operations in order to solve the equation and get the variable by itself. So let's go ahead and practice using those steps on the two problems below. The first equation, x plus 21 equals 65. Now, I can understand that you might think this seems a little bit easy, but remember that we're taking baby steps towards something that is a lot bigger and more important. When we get to chapter 8 and we're solving way more complicated equations, you're going to have a more firm base on how to solve these types of equations. So this is why we're taking it slowly. All right, so go ahead and write down problem number 1. Drawing the river just pretty much means we're going to separate the equation into two parts. So we have the left side and we have the right side. Anytime you have an equation, it's really important to remember that it has to stay balanced. So anything that you do to one side of the equation or one side of the river, you're going to have to do the same exact thing to the other side in order for it to stay balanced. So now what we're going to do is we're going to locate our variable. The variable is what we are solving for. So in this equation, the variable is on the left-hand side. After we circle the variable, now what we're going to do is we're going to add or subtract extra stuff that's next to the variable in order to isolate it or get it by itself. So what I mean is I want my equation at the end to say x equals a number. In order to do that, I need to get rid of this plus 21. So I'm going to use the inverse operation, which would be minus 21. And if you think about what I said about it being balanced, whatever we do to one side, we have to do the exact same thing to the other side of the equation, which means I'm also going to subtract 21. So our plus 21 and minus 21, those are opposites, so those cancel each other out. And on the right-hand side, we have 65 minus 21, which is 44. So x is equal to 44. If you want to do a quick check of your answer, all you'd have to do is plug in 44 up here where the x is and see if it makes a true statement. Is 44 plus 21 equal to 65? Yes, it is. And so that means we got it correct. All right, go ahead and write down number 2, and then again draw your river and circle your variable. You can pause the video at any time if you need an extra minute to write down the problem. Now the variable's on the right-hand side of the equation, but we're still going to do the same thing. We're going to use the inverse operation. So if it says minus 32, that means we are going to do plus 32 on both sides. We need to keep it balanced, so we're going to do the same thing on both sides. Minus 32 and plus 32 cancel each other out. So over on the right-hand side, we have y equals, and then when we add up 58 and 32, we get 90. So y is equal to 90. A quick check would be taking 90 minus 32, see if that equals 58. Yes, it does, so we know we're okay. All right, let's go ahead and try some more. Go ahead and write down the next problem. Draw your river. Locate your variable. Now this one's written a little bit differently. If you notice on the right-hand side it says w plus negative 217. Remember that adding negatives is really the same thing as subtraction. So we are going to need to do the opposite of subtraction for this one, and that would be addition. One way that you can kind of make that simpler if that's confusing to you is just pay attention to the sign that is right in front of the 217. It is a negative sign. which is kind of the same thing as a subtraction sign. So that means we need to do the opposite of subtraction, which would be addition. So we're going to add 217 to both sides. Negative 217 and positive 217 cancel. Therefore, W is equal to 529. All right, next problem. Go ahead and write the problem down. Draw your river. Circle your variable. Go ahead and pause the video and try this one on your own. See if you can get the n all by itself so that at the end we have n equals a number. All right, let's see how you did. So for this one, I'm going to be subtracting 18 from both sides, the opposite operation of plus. Now on this one, we end up with negative 27 minus 18. If that looks a little confusing to you, if we write it this way, negative 27 minus 18, you might notice we have to use SAO on this one. Remember, SAO is when we change it to an addition problem. So really, negative 27 plus negative 18 is equal to negative 45. So n is equal to negative 45. All right, let's do another one. Draw your river. Circle your variable. Oh, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a minus and a negative there in between the x and the 28. So we're going to have to bloop bloop first. Change this into a big plus sign. Let's bloop bloop that one. So our equation is really x plus 28 equals 101. So we're going to do the opposite of plus 28, which is minus 28. And so we get x is equal to 73. All right, moving on. Why don't you go ahead, pause the video, and try the next two problems on your own, and then play the video when you're ready to check your answer. All right, getting my rivers set up here. For the next problem, hopefully you did plus 16 on both sides. That means the minus 16 and plus 16 cancel. And negative 23 plus 16 is negative 7. So negative 7 for an answer. And then lastly, here's our variable. So we need to get rid of the plus 40. So we're going to do minus 40 on both sides. So y is equal to negative 19. All right, nice job. Let's move on. Another part of this lesson is to be able to write an equation from a situation and then solve it to find the actual answer. So here we have Jessica. Jessica downloaded 54 songs onto her iPod. This is 17 less than the number of songs Kayla downloaded earlier. Write an equation to find the number of songs Kayla downloaded. So we have some options for this one. What I would recommend is if you look for keywords first in the problem. So Jessica downloaded 54 songs onto her iPod. And this is, remember, is means equals 17 less than the number of songs Kayla downloaded. So remember way back when we were translating equations, if we want 17 less than the number Kayla downloaded, that would be K minus 17. So if we're looking for an equation, we want to find one where we have 54 equals K minus 17. That would be equation A. Now what we need to do is solve the equation to find how many songs that Kayla actually downloaded. So we would circle our variable, draw the river, add 17 to both sides, and this is going to tell us that Kayla downloaded, see here, 71 songs. There we go. Why don't you pause the video and see if you can go ahead and find the correct equation for this one and then solve it. In the 2004 presidential election, Georgia had 15 electoral votes. That was 19 votes fewer than the number of votes in Texas. Write and solve an equation to find the number of votes in Texas. All right, so let's see if we wrote the equation correctly. So here we have Georgia. They had 15 electoral votes. And it says that that is, or that was, 19 votes fewer than the number of votes in Texas. Fewer than, remember, is similar to less than. So here's our equation. 15 equals T minus 19. That would be choice C. Now to figure out how many votes Texas actually had, we're going to go ahead and use our river to solve the equation. These cancel here because they're opposites. So we end up with 34 votes. Great job, everybody.